What's going on, everyone? Today we need to talk about a situation that's been quietly building behind the scenes, and now it's finally starting to explode into the public eye. 50 Cent is officially under pressure, not from one person, but from multiple angles at the same time. And no, this isn't just about Diddy. This looks more like a coordinated attempt to shake 50's image right as his documentary momentum is heating up. Recently, an article dropped claiming that 50 Cent settled an assault case, and if you only glanced at the headline, it looked wild. The timing made it seem like this settlement was somehow connected to the upcoming Diddy documentary, almost as if 50 had something to hide. But when you actually read the full details, the story tells a very different version of events. According to court records, the incident involved an SUV door accidentally hitting a man, causing him to fall and get injured. The man sued, which, honestly, most people would do in that situation, especially when a celebrity is involved. Instead of dragging the case out in court, 50 chose to settle. No admission of guilt, no violent altercation, no criminal wrongdoing, just a standard civil settlement. The problem isn't the case itself, it's how the story was framed. The headline made it feel like 50 Cent was being accused of the same type of behavior that's surrounding Diddy, which is a massive leap. This is how public perception gets manipulated. Most people don't read articles, they read headlines. And in this case, the headline did exactly what it was designed to do: spark outrage and plant doubt. Now here, where things get interesting. This article didn't appear randomly. It surfaced right as 50 has been openly involved in exposing uncomfortable truths surrounding Diddy. That timing has raised serious questions about whether this is just journalism or a calculated PR move meant to distract, deflect, or damage. Adding fuel to the fire is Ja Rule, who has suddenly reemerged with a vengeance. Ja has been extremely vocal online, throwing accusations, hinting at his own documentary, and suggesting that 50's past is just as dark as the stories being told about Diddy. For longtime hip-hop fans, this feud isn't new, but the intensity of it now feels different. 50, however, doesn't seem rattled at all. Instead of issuing a defensive statement, he doubled down with confidence. On Instagram, he reposted a comment warning him that powerful industry players were allegedly aligning against him, including old rivals and major music executives. His response, simple and unapologetic, basically saying, "Let them all come." That response alone speaks volumes. Either 50 truly doesn't care what people dig up, or he knows there's nothing substantial waiting to be exposed. And in an industry where silence usually means fear, his attitude suggests the opposite. But now the conversation has shifted. People aren't just talking about Diddy anymore. They're asking questions about 50 Cent's past, old relationships, old lawsuits, old accusations that many never paid attention to before. Are these legitimate concerns, or are they being recycled and reframed to serve a bigger narrative? That's exactly what we're going to break down, piece by piece. Because once we start unpacking the accusations being thrown at 50, especially by people from his past, the story becomes far more complicated than the headlines want you to believe, and some details might completely change how you see this entire situation. As the noise around 50 Cent continued to grow, one thing became clear very quickly. The headlines didn't match the details. On the surface, it looked like a coordinated effort to blur lines and push a dangerous comparison, placing 50 Cent in the same category as Diddy. But once you slow things down and actually examine the claims, that narrative starts to fall apart. One of the most frequently mentioned points was a civil lawsuit involving an alleged assault. When most people hear that word, they imagine something violent or intentional. But the actual incident was far less dramatic. According to public records, the situation involved an SUV door opening and accidentally striking someone nearby. The individual fell, claimed injury, and later sued. That's it. No altercation, no physical attack, no criminal charges. 50 Cent chose to settle the case, which is extremely common for celebrities, not because they're guilty, but because it's faster and cheaper than years of litigation. However, the way the article was titled made it seem like something much darker. It heavily implied violent behavior and conveniently dropped right before discussions around the Diddy documentary intensified. That timing alone raised eyebrows. To critics, this looked less like journalism and more like strategic framing, the kind designed to damage perception, not inform the public. At the same time, old industry rivalries resurfaced. Ja Rule, a longtime adversary of 50, suddenly became very vocal. Tweets, comments, and hints of a counter-documentary began circulating. The message was clear. If 50 Cent was going to dig into Diddy's past, people were ready to dig into his. And not just with facts, but with narratives. 50 didn't exactly respond defensively. Instead, he leaned into it. On Instagram, he reposted a comment suggesting powerful industry players were aligning against him, then added his own caption that essentially said he wasn't worried. Whether you see that as confidence or defiance, the message was unmistakable. He expected backlash and wasn't backing down. That reaction matters because people with something to hide usually go silent. They avoid attention. They distance themselves. Instead, 50 appeared completely unbothered, almost daring people to investigate him. That doesn't prove innocence, but it does suggest he isn't afraid of scrutiny. This is where the conversation needs balance. No celebrity is perfect. The hip-hop industry, like many others, is filled with egos, conflicts, and questionable decisions. But there's a major difference between documented evidence and loosely recycled accusations. When discussing Diddy, video evidence exists. Court filings exist. Multiple patterns span decades. With 50 Cent, the claims are far thinner, often tied to money disputes, personal fallouts, or situations where accusations surfaced only after financial relationships collapsed. That doesn't automatically make accusers liars, but it does mean context matters, timing matters, motive matters. And here's the bigger issue. Once public opinion turns into a mob, facts become optional. Headlines become weapons. And people stop asking the most important question, where is the proof? Because when you actually separate emotion from evidence, the comparison many are trying to make starts to feel forced. And next, we're going to dive into the most controversial allegations of all, the ones involving 50 Cent's past relationships, his first child's mother, and why money may be at the center of everything people don't talk about.